Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm excited for the individual I have on this week because he's the first monster truck guy I've ever had on my show, and he and I have actually gotten a chance to connect over the last few weeks, maybe last month or so. Really sharp dude. He's got a lot of things going on that he's working on, and we're going to get into his book and all that. But he's driving monster trucks, and I'm always been fascinated by their skill and the things that they do, the talent that they have. So I'm excited for this conversation. But my good friend Bryce Kenny has joined me on Dad Up. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited for this conversation. So I don't know if I know I'm the first monster truck driver you've had on. Am I also the first guy with a mohawk that you've had on the Dad Up podcast?
You are the first guy with a mohawk. You are the first
Good.
guy
So
with a mohawk.
I'm checking two boxes, which is awesome.
There you go. That's awesome. Cool, man. I'm really excited for this conversation because, you and I were kind of chatting off before we started recording. And, you got a monster truck thing coming up this weekend out here in sunny Southern California that I'm going to be going to. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to checking it out. But more importantly, you have just written a book. Obviously, it's right there over your right shoulder, Geared for Life. It's a great book. I've got it right here. He sent it to me as well. It's a phenomenal book. So we're going to dive into all that as well. But I'm dying to know more about Bryce, and I'm sure my fans and listeners are as well. So let's start from the beginning. I want to know a little bit about your back history, kind of how you grew up, how you got into the things you're doing now. And then obviously this is a dad podcast, so I want to know about your family as well.
Yeah, man. And I love talking about my kids as well. And that's why I love this podcast. So the chance to do that. And I'm married, been married for 12 years. I have a 8-year-old daughter, a 6-year-old son, and a 2-year-old daughter. So girl, boy, girl. And it was kind of funny too, Brian, because I grew up, I was one of 4 boys. My wife was one of 4 girls growing up. So here I've got my son, my son will come in here and he'll do something. And my wife's just looking at me like, is that a normal boy thing? Because she doesn't have a clue. She grew up with all sisters. And I'm kind of looking at her like, yeah, he's fine. It's totally good. And then my daughter will say something or do something or have a reaction to something. And I'm like, is that a normal girl thing? And she's like, yeah, she's fine. Don't worry about it. So we kind of help each other and coach each other through a lot of those parenting moments so far with the genders that we just never grew up around. But I grew up in North Carolina and still live here in North Carolina. And I was very close with my grandfather. So I was very fortunate that I had an awesome relationship with my grandfather. And he was my mentor. He was my guy. And he was really where I found my love for motorsports. So he had a drag strip that he owned up in Clay City, Kentucky. And so when I would get out of school every year, the first thing I would do is go up to Kentucky, and I would basically live there all summer long. And he had an 80-acre farm on top of the Kentucky mountain with 2 ponds. We had ATVs everywhere. It was a man's paradise. And so I would go up there and spend as much time as I could. Well, then I would go and weed eat the fence line at the drag strip as well during the week that he owned. That's cool. And then, drive our little junior dragster on the weekends. And when you're 9 years old, going 40 miles an hour and it's all you think that you're on a rocket ship somewhere. And so that's really where I fell in love with motorsports as a whole. But it wasn't until we went professional in 2001, I think, is when our family finally transitioned into that. And so we bought a Top Fuel dragster. Have you ever seen the long, skinny cars that go 300 miles an hour in 4 seconds?
Yep. I'm very familiar with them.
So that's exactly what we had. And man, that's where I looked and I saw the platform. That's where I saw my grandfather just be able to walk into a room and everyone wanted to know what he knew because he got shot out of a cannon professionally in a Top Fuel car. And that's where I said, I want to do that for a living. Like my career, I want to be in motorsports. And honestly, I wanted it to be in Top Fuel. And so I actually got my chance to pursue that. And so from 2009 to 2011, I took over the driver's seat. My grandfather had a heart attack in the car, and he lived through it, thankfully, but he got a pacemaker, and Top Fuel driving was out of the picture for him. So when I stepped in, Brian, I was a 21-year-old kid walking in and out of these corporate boardrooms, asking them for $3 million to put their name on the side of the race car. And that was in 2010, right? That was like the last great recession that we had.
Right.
And it was just bad. I remember talking to a guy, and he is CEO of a company. He's like, Bryce, I just laid off 500 people. Wow. How am I supposed to give you a dime? And so in 2011, I always like to talk and kind of describe it as that dream died for me. And I went to my grandfather and I said, look, you've already done so much for me, but you built this over the last 50 years. He started out on old abandoned airstrips back in the 1960s. Oh, wow. You know, and I told him, I said, you know what, if it takes me 50 years of my own to get back here, so be it. But don't just keep this just because I'm your grandson. Like, if you and grandma, you need to retire and sell everything. And that's what happened. My dream died. I went into a corporate job at that point, and then it wasn't until 4 years later that Monster Jam called me, and they said, hey, we've had your information ever since you got out of drag racing. Would you want to come to Monster Jam University? And I thought that was kind of odd.
Wait. We got to stop right there, because I have never heard of Monster Jam University.
Yeah, calling you up. I hadn't either. I thought they were kidding. I was like, what the heck does Monster Jam, and by the way, they did give me a diploma after I got through Monster Jam University. Bryan, I thought it was kind of absurd. And I left the diploma in the hotel room because I was like, this is ridiculous. I don't want this diploma. I talk about that diploma, though, all the time. I really wish I would have kept it. But some cleaning lady somewhere probably has it hung up in their room in Paxton, Illinois.
Or it's on eBay.
Yeah. I think it found the garbage can pretty quickly. But no, when they called me too, Bryan, I was kind of worried because I had 7 different jobs at one time when I was going through my Top Fuel dream, trying to make that dream happen. And I had moved on from that. So I was in this corporate job. I had just gotten married. We started a family. We had bought a house. And Monster Jam really wasn't in the cards for me. I had never even been to a Monster Jam event. Some people were like, oh, did you grow up loving monster trucks? No. I never had them. I don't remember ever having a monster truck toy ever. And so I just I didn't know if it would really fit when they first called me anyway, but I remember my reaction to them when they said, hey, would you be willing to come to Monster Jam University? I was like, well, how much is this going to cost me? And they said, well, nothing. It's our equipment. We're the largest motorsports fleet in the world. Like we've got it. And I'm kind of like, oh, so just a flight in a hotel? I'm thinking, man, for $1,000, that's a pretty good experience to have. And they said they kind of got frustrated. And they're like, no, we'll buy you a flight in a hotel. Can you just get off of work in order to come up here and test in one of these monster trucks? And I was like, well, heck yeah, I could do that. Who would say no to that opportunity? All expense paid trip to go up and test drive one of these 12,000-pound machines. Of course I'd say that. And Bryan, I did not think it would go anywhere. Honestly, I had zero expectation. I just thought I would be in a Buffalo Wild Wings one day and it would come up on TV and I would get to nudge a buddy sitting beside me and be like, dude, I drove one of those things a long time ago. And that was it. And here I am. I'm eight years into my career with Monster Jam. It's gotten better every single year. It's just, I'm living the dream over here.
You are not just living the dream. You are probably one of the most talented monster truck drivers I have seen, because I've seen videos of you and some of the skills and stuff that you do are just insane. Like,
thank you.
I mean, seriously, guys, if you have not seen, go to his social media page and see some of because he drives the Great Clips Mohawk Warrior truck. And if you go to and look at his Instagram or his social media pages, and you just look at some of the videos in there and some of the stuff that he's doing, it's insane. It really is. Like, I was showing it to my boys the other day. I'm like, look at what this guy is doing. This is insane. And not only that, but I mean, you got to give yourself a little bit of credit. You're a world record holder.
Yeah.
First guy to ever drive at 3 digits, meaning over 100 miles an hour in a monster truck.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
It was kind of cool too, by the way, with the Guinness World Record. They always said, hey, no truck's ever been 100 miles an hour. And I was like, yeah, but no Monster Jam truck's ever crashed at 100 miles an hour either. Like at that speed, it wanted to vibrate itself apart. So that was the scary part about that. But I appreciate it. It's amazing to see what the sport's becoming and how quickly we're evolving it and innovating the sport. And the fact that we're pulling off some of these moves. I mean, these trucks weren't originally designed to do that stuff, and we're pushing them to their limits every single weekend. So it's just an honor to be a part of. But I would agree. I think the fact that this is my career, I think anyone out there listening to this should write a very strongly worded email or physical letter, in this case, I think, to your high school guidance counselor that they never told you Monster Jam University existed.
Exactly. I tell you what, I would have been the same way because, working in corporate America and then Monster Truck University calls you up and says, hey, would you be interested in coming out to an all expense paid just trip to test drive one of our machines?
Yeah.
Yeah, duh. I mean, I'll take a sick day for that.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's so cool, man. That's so cool. And I'm really excited because I've never been to a monster truck event. I really have never been.
Yeah.
I've been to several NASCAR events. I mean, I'm a huge car guy myself. I grew up building cars with my dad. I bought a 1962 Chevy Nova when I was 12 years old for $50. So I could work on it and build it up. By the time I was 16, I had a car. I was one of my only friends who had a car at 16 that I was driving, that was my own, that I built. And my dad and I worked on it for several years. We did interior, we did the paint, we did the engines. I mean, I bought another Nova so I could take parts off of it. It was just a whole mess for years. But I sort of regret, because I sold that car. I went into the Marine Corps after I got out of high school, and I spent 4 years in the Marines, and I met my wife. And I needed money because I wanted to propose to her, and I needed money because in the military, you don't make a lot of money. So I needed money to buy a ring so I could propose to her. And the only thing I could come up with was, well, my Nova is sitting at my parents' house doing nothing, just sitting. So I could sell it. So I bought it for $50, put a few $1,000 into it, turned around and sold it when I was 20 for $4,000.
Wow.
And bought my wife's engagement ring.
Man.
That guy that bought my car still owns it today. My wife and I have been together for over 26 years, and he still owns it today. And he's done some things. He's cherried it out, changed it up a bit. But I've always told my dad, if you ever come across that guy and he wants to sell that car, I will buy it back. Because
and how many times you hear a lot of those stories too, where someone like that, where they sell a car and then all of a sudden they're able to get that car back. And it's such a feel good story. And I don't know why, but here I'm sitting here like cheering that you would get this car back one day. And man, what a good wedding gift or a anniversary gift. Maybe she could get you one of these years. Shout out to Mrs. Ward. But maybe that can be in the cards for you guys down the road. But that would be super cool. And that was my first car was a 1970 Mustang Mach 1 that I bought from my uncle. And I still have it though. I will say I don't know what I would have let that thing go for, but now it's been in our family for 40 years, and I've been doing everything I can to keep it out on the road, because I would love it if my kids got it one day, if they want it, and maybe they don't. But those projects you talked about the moments of working on it with your dad. I can just imagine the stories you've got and the precious memories. That's probably why you want it back. It's not because it's worth something on the market. It's because you've got a lot of, you all of a sudden I can only imagine you pop the hood and all of a sudden you'd start to change out the exhaust headers or something. And there's some bolt sticking in the sidewall or the firewall or something like that. And you're like, I remember putting that there because we hung the coolant reservoir there for some reason or whatever it might be. But you're going to have those little intricate details of the things that you guys made work years back with your dad. And that's the special stuff. That's what the memories, man, the memories that are attached to the car are so much more important than the car itself. And that's what really, man, that's what I'm passionate about talking about all the time. Anyway, it's like the memories are the trophies we should be chasing. Those memories with your dad are the real trophies, and the car just represents the memories,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I can remember there's so many different things I can remember about working on that car. I can remember the bad days too. I can remember the days where, here I am, a 14-year-old kid, and I just wanted to go hang out and play and run around and do all kinds of stuff. And my dad's going, hey dude, you got to get in there and wet sand that car down. Like, you got to get some wet sanding done because we got to get that thing to the shop so we can get it painted. And I'm like, crap, well, I'm supposed to go to the movies or I'm supposed to go play football well, do you want a car or do you want to go do that? No, I want a car. Well, then you better go wet sand. So yeah, and none of my buddies wanted to help. It was like, hey, you want to come over? I got to wet sand my car. I got to put it in. I got to get the cherry picker and drop a new engine in my car. You want to come over? No, we don't want to do that. But guess what? When I got the car done and I was the only one driving, guess who wanted a ride? All those same buddies. They all wanted rides, right?
Man, did you do a lot of burnouts with it too? I mean, were you a troublemaker with that car once it was done?
I wasn't, but I did get into trouble a couple times because when I was about 13, and we're kind of going off a little story, but this is fun. When I was about 13, I started driving my dad's car. He has a 1963 Chevy Nova, and he still has it. He had it when I was a toddler, and I'm 50 years old, and he still has that car. It's still sitting in his property, and he still works on it. He still tinkers on it, and he's 70 years old, and he still tinkers on it. But I would practice driving his car up and down our alley at the back of our house just to get practice on how to drive a car. And so I was getting to a point where I'd go down to the alley, and my dad didn't know this at the time, but I'd go down to the alley and I'd have to turn around and make a U-turn to come back. Well, I was spinning his car to get that thing going to come back. And it was, it was a lot of fun. And then when my car started driving, when I got my car working, I was leaving my job one night, and I was traveling down the freeway, and this joker thought he wanted to race for whatever reason. And so I said, okay. And he started to take off, and I went, nah, that's not good enough, brother. And I took off and just freaking blew the doors off of him. Well, I didn't know that there was a highway patrol that was sitting there, and the highway patrol pulled me over, and he comes over to the passenger side of the window, and he's banging on the window, and he's like, get out of the car. And I get out of the car, and he goes, where in the hell you think you're going at, Mario? He's calling me Mario Andretti, right? Where do you think you're going? And so I was just honest with him. I just told him I screwed up, and he let me go. He goes, I could impound your car. You were doing over 100 miles an hour. Long story. He ended up just giving me a ticket for 70 miles an hour. Let me go. He liked the car, that kind of stuff, and that was that. But yeah, so I've had a little bit of mischief in my cars.
Yeah.
So you have, okay, so we've talked about cars now. We've got that all out of the way. You've got some awesome kids, and I'm really curious to know from you, because I want to get into your book, and I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time. But you have, 2 girls and a boy. What has been their interest in monster trucks, if any, knowing that their dad's one of these monster truck drivers? Has there been a lot of talk about that around the house?
Oh, there's a ton of talk. And so my 8-year-old daughter, she's more into horses. So it's a little bit of a different horsepower. Right. But it's funny though, cause I built a junior dragster, which is the same thing I grew up doing. And I built one of those for them to start learning how to race and to drive and stuff. And she's all over that. Right. And so she's probably more into that now in drag racing than she is in Monster Jam. My 6-year-old son is eaten up with monster trucks, though. He loves it. Everything in life is monster trucks, and they do think it's cool what dad does. And it's interesting because a couple of years ago, my daughter, I want to say she was 5. This was probably right before COVID. She kind of comes to me and she's like, Daddy, I don't want you doing Monster Jam anymore. I'm like, oh, honey, what's wrong? Why? That kind of thing. Because you travel all the time, and I don't get to see you as much. Well, as a dad, obviously that just rips your heart out, because you're going, man, I don't. And I remember sitting her down and saying, look, I know dad travels for work, but you've got to know that there's nothing on this planet more important than you. I want you to know that. Here's why I'm doing it. And she's 5, so she's not going to understand purpose, and she's not going to understand any of that stuff. But she also didn't see me in my corporate job working 80 to 90 hours a week. She doesn't know what that looks like, where I'm coming home and seeing them for dinner and then helping to put them to bed. And I see them on the weekends. I had a great father. I still have a great relationship with my dad. And he was an incredible provider, but he was not there until the weekends. That's when we saw him, was on the weekends. And I just remember growing up going, gosh, that'll be hard for me to do as a dad, to not be able to spend more time with my kids. But anyway, so she was kind of asking me to give it up. And I remember thinking, it's so easy for us as guys, as men, to put our projects over the people in our lives. And we just kind of prioritize the projects over people. And I remember thinking, like, I don't want to do it that way. I don't want my kids to think work is more important than them, but I also want them to see and watch dad chase a purpose and like chase his goals and to go through hard things. Because the thing I took the most from my relationship with my grandfather is that I watched him endure really difficult things and make it through. And so that taught me, you know what, I can make it through too. Whatever life throws my way, I'll be okay. Right. None of the disappointments in life is going to kill me. I can make it through, and I can choose to believe rather than doubt that opportunities can bring good things. And so anyway, fast forward now 2 years. And I asked my daughter the other day, because she got mad at me because I wore a hat to school to pick her up. So I didn't gel the mohawk up. And she got mad at me. And I was like, Eliza, why are you aggravated at me? What are you talking about? I like it when you do your mohawk. I'm like, well, why do you like it when I do my mohawk? What are you talking about? And so I kind of sat there and I was thinking for a little bit, and I looked at her and I said, do you like it that dad gets recognized because of my mohawk for being Mohawk Warrior? And she was like, yes, I do. I want people to recognize you. So I was like, oh man, that's kind of cool. So, then I asked her, I said, so I thought you kind of were getting tired of dad being Mohawk Warrior. You want me to keep doing what I'm doing and travel? She's like, yeah, I don't like it that you travel, but I love that you're Mohawk Warrior. So Bryan, I'm still cool. I hope for a couple more years in my kid's eyes. She does like it now, but I think because now she's getting older, she's realizing that even though it's hard, like it's a different job, and she likes that. She likes not the attention that she gets from her friends, but she likes being proud of her family. And I'm proud that that I'm giving her a reason to be proud, at least as an 8-year-old in 3rd grade, to do that stuff. So that's been a kind of a whirlwind, but it's easier when they're part of the dream, right? It's easier when they get to travel with me, when they get to see the impact that we get to make as a family because of what I do for a living. That stuff makes it all so much easier. And it's way easier as well that my wife never guilt trips them when I'm gone, right? I'm gone on the road and they'll come up and say, well, Dad, I just miss Daddy. Well, she's not looking at them like, well, yeah, but he's got to go to work. No. She sits long enough to explain what I'm doing. Not just that I'm at work. She explains the impact that I'm making in Anaheim, California that weekend. And that is the secret to everything with our family. It's not that I'm just some warrior out there chasing my dream and it's inspiring my kids. It's that my wife chooses to circle the kids into that dream, to remind them that what we're doing as a family, it is hard, but we can do hard things. And to remind the kids that, hey, it's a team effort. It's a family effort to go out there and make that level of impact.
Yeah. I love that. One of the greatest things that a man, a husband can have in his life is a supportive spouse. That can make or break a man and who he becomes. Really, truly, it can. And the fact that your wife is 100% supportive of you and backing of you, and even helps to kind of get the kids aligned in that kind of that principle of what you guys are doing as a family is remarkable. So kudos to your wife. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Really amazing.
And I'll tell the story. It's worth saying now, because I know there's got to be someone out there that's sitting there thinking like, well, my spouse is not supportive. How do I change that? Well, I talk about the story in my book, Geared for Life, quite a bit, because one of the hardest decisions of my life was giving up my Top Fuel dream, right? My drag racing dream, what I thought I was going to do for work forever. And I was sitting with a mentor of mine. I was so frustrated that things weren't working out, that dream I described earlier, like it was dying. And I was sitting with a mentor, and he said, Bryce, he said, do you love Mackenzie? I said, of course I do. He said, can you live with her? I said, yeah, I could live with her. Could you live without her? And I paused. And I went, no, I could not live without her. And he said, then I'm going to tell you, because you've got this unique opportunity to give up your dream for her. And I'm going to recommend and really challenge you and encourage you to consider that, because this might be the last time in your life that you're able to give up the thing that you love in this life most for the person that you love most. And Bryan, I remember really wrestling with that decision, of course, because it was my dream to do Top Fuel. So I didn't want to just give it up. And she wasn't asking me to give it up, but we also weren't doing well. Like I could have seen us, maybe even separating at that point because we were just dating. And he said, look, if you'll take the time to get your house in order, then you'll establish a really good foundation. So I went home and I talked to Mackenzie, and I was like, look, I think I'm going to step away from this. And also, would you marry me? Like, I took that plunge, and I made sure she knew, like, I'm doing this for you as well. Like, I'm doing this for us because I care more about our life together than I do about my career. And Bryan, when I was leaving my corporate job for Monster Jam 8 years ago, so fast forward that decision, 4 years to the Monster Jam stuff, I was going to have to take a 30% pay cut to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Mackenzie was the very first person. She immediately said, Bryce, do it. Take the pay cut. We'll be okay as a family. Your purpose on this earth, I am supportive of you being in motorsports because I know that's your heart. I know that you're able to go and impact the world through that like you've always dreamed of doing. Monster Jam is going to be the avenue that we go and make a difference and change the world. And she only did that because she knows now, to this day, if she walked into me and said, Bryce, I want you to give up Monster Jam, it's too much for us, she knows that I would do it because I've already done it. I did it back in Top Fuel. So she knows that she never has to question, is she more important to me than my Monster Jam career? The answer to that is yes, she's way more important to me. But that's why, knowing that is why she would never come and ask me to give it up. And I know that friction that happens with marriages oftentimes and spouses, and even with kids too, as fathers with their kids, sometimes they just want to know that they truly are the priority and more important. And I think us as dads, like, that's the challenge. The challenge is not really, do you give it up or not? It's, are you truly willing to? Would you actually give all of it up for them? And if the answer to that is yes, then there's probably different decisions that we would make on a daily basis, like actually turning off our phone, not getting on social media when we're really just trying to get that commercial break in our life at 7 p.m. But we go out and play RC cars with our son. Like those moments when we can. So now I look for little ways to give up things. Am I perfect? No. Like I've missed every Valentine's Day dance with my daughter because that's right in the thick of our season for Monster Jam. And my daughter sees that. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm just perfect and give up everything and at every chance I get. But I can tell you this, I love the chance when they walk in and I'm doing some social media post to they know what I'm doing, to look at that, turn off my phone and look at them and say, buddy, what can we go do together? What are you asking me to go do? Well, I want to go do RC cars. Let's go do that right now. I wanted to, sometimes it's the smaller decisions we can make as dads or as husbands to be able to go and prove to them like, hey, you're more important. Maybe you're not having to give up your career for them, but would you? And if you would be, find those little moments, those little opportunities to show them they're more important.
Yeah. I absolutely 100% agree. It's what I stand by in my podcast. It's what I stand by as a father myself. It's what I stand by as a husband myself. I completely agree. There's an old, I don't know how old it is, but there's a saying that says, kids spell love Time. And the more that you are spending time on your phone while you're trying to hang out with your kids, that's not spending time with your kids. That is not. And the fact that your kids come up to you and you put your phone down and go, what do you guys want to do? Let's go do something together. That's the Time. That's what they're looking for. That's the love to them. So yeah, you might miss these little events here and there along the way that are important, but it's not that big impact that it's making, because you're making the impact in those little tiny things that you're doing with the time that you're spending with your kids and making it intentional with the time that you're spending with your kids and your wife for that matter. So that's amazing. That's awesome. I do have to ask you one question because it's driving me nuts, but is that piston behind you, is that an award? What is that?
No, that's actually a bent up piston from a Top Fuel motor. It's billet aluminum and it's twisted like a toothpick. It's it came out of a blown up motor because those Top Fuel engines produce about 10,000 horsepower. So when things go wrong, they go really wrong. Right. And that's honestly, that's my reminder that, hey, as good as we all are and everything that we want to create and as tough as we can all be, it's all going to blow up anyway. So you might as well enjoy it while you got it.
I can imagine some of the viewers that are watching this going, what is that thing that's on the wall behind it? That's a piston. It goes in the motor of a car. And as he said, it went in the motor of a dragster. So it's an important piece of a motor. So
it had that piston right behind my head had 10,000 horsepower pressing up against the top of it. So and it shows.
Well, cool. I wanted to ask you this, when it comes to, you said you're traveling a lot. Your season goes on for quite a few months. And you said your kids do get to go with you from time to time to these different events. I can only imagine your son loves it. I mean, he must what would you say to him if he came to you, I don't know how old you have to be. Obviously you got to maybe have a driver's license, but how old you have to be a monster truck driver, but what did you say to him? I'm sure that thought has crossed your mind, that here he is 15 and he's going, Dad, I think I want to do what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And he already at 6 says that's what he wants to be when he grows up. And I was that kid too, by the way. When I was 6, I would have said I want to be a professional race car driver. And then in high school, people stop asking you that question of what you want to be. They just ask you where you want to go to school, and I think that's a big mistake because, we're training kids by the time they become freshmen in high school to stop dreaming and to stop using imagination. And then you wonder why they're at 21. And really that's just a 5 or 6 year stint. They get all the imagination beat out of them through high school, and then they go and they just become little workhorses in college, and then you wonder why they're depressed. It's like because they forgot how to dream and how to imagine things. Anyway, to answer your question, my son came to me and said, "Hey, I want to drive a Monster Jam truck." I would immediately tell them, absolutely, like I'm all for it. I always have one question I like to ask people because I said, if it took you the next 40 years to do it, would you? Because a real dream, like a lot of people have interests, but a real dream that becomes a vision, like there is no timestamp to it. I've had that question, I've asked that question to people before that said, "Hey, I want to do what you do," and I've asked that question. They're like, "Honestly, probably not." And it's like, we need to get a different dream, because don't go down this route. It's very heartbreaking and it's very lonely. Like there's no manual to making it in any form of motorsport, because it is the most fragile industry I've ever seen. If you were to get a 3-year deal with a sponsor, that's like a 30-year deal in corporate America. I mean, 3 years. Oh my gosh. Like we don't have to get a sponsor for another 3 years from now. And so I would do that. I'm already, one of the things that being a Monster Jam driver's taught me, and just being in motorsports in general, is how important it really is to be able to effectively communicate and how to influence other people, meaning, how to work with other people. And so, my kids are one of the first books that they're going to read when they like actually could be able to
comprehend a book that
comprehend it. Is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Perfect.
How to Win Friends and Influence People. I cannot believe that we're not teaching that stuff in high school, in middle school, really, but How to Win Friends. That book wrecked me because I was so bad, Bryan, at dealing with others. And so that's the first thing I would do. But if my son came to me, I'd be all over it. And then I would help him shape that, not just what you want to do and not just why you want to do it. I think in society, we're getting really good about that little catchphrase of like knowing your why. But I'm a big believer in understanding who you want to become along the way. I think when we understand our best versions, then we do more to become that better version of ourselves.
So good.
So how would you describe yourself today? And this is a good answer. It's a good thing, because we could sit there and say, how do you want people to describe you at your funeral? That's a heavy question. How do you think people describe you now, today? And then how would you want them to describe you 1 year from today? And the clearer that picture is, the more the what can kind of fall in line with that. And that's why I'm in Monster Jam, not because the Monster Jam is what I had always wanted to do. I didn't grow up around understanding it, so I didn't know that. It was when I remembered who I wanted to be. I wanted to be someone who uses the platform of motorsports to impact the world. So that's why Monster Jam fell in line. I kind of found that purpose gear, and I made a purpose decision, not a monetary decision. So that's what I would do with him, is I would spend my time not thinking about, I would help him on the technical side. I would help him be a better communicator and do all that stuff. I would help him shape, though, who he ultimately wants to become through that vision, through that process. And that's where I would help him attach his identity to, because that's really what life is all about. And all of our identities are so fragile, but we have not worked on our identities in years. And that's where the time has got to be spent. And that's where mentorship and really good mentorship helps, in my opinion.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I agree with you 100%. I think there's so many valuable tools and resources that, schools should be teaching our kids, especially now, because, this old way of doing things, just, how to read, write, and all that kind of stuff is important, but they're missing some other components that, the world is changing, yet our school systems still seem to be teaching the same stuff. And the world is different. And the way that we grow up and the way that we get into the things that we're doing and the career paths that we choose don't have to be the same way that mom and dad did it or our grandparents did it, right? I mean, that's the way I grew up. You know, you go to high school, you get your diploma there, and then you go to college. Well, I didn't like college. I went to college and I told my parents, I don't like college. I want to take a break. I just want to work and I want to have fun. I just want to chill. And my dad said, great. Well, then you're going to start paying rent. We want to be an adult. Then you're going to start doing all these things. And I said, well, then I'll just go into the military. And he said, even better, do it. And I'm like, great. So, I mean, I went into the military and then I got back out and I did end up going to school and getting a degree. And, you know, I wanted my boys to get degrees in college, but I wanted them to get degrees in something that they thought they would be good at or passionate about. My younger son's passionate about sports, and he wants to be some sort of sport analyst, sport caster, something in that industry, or sports management, something along those lines. So he's doing that. My older son got a degree as an entrepreneur. He wants to own a business, run a business. And so that's great. But once they get out of college, now what are you going to do with it? And your kids, being at the age that they're at, they see their dad, you know, successful in the things that he's doing, and they want to do that. It's their dream. Yeah, we don't want to crush that dream, but we also have to help them understand, like you said, we have to help them understand, are you really passionate about it? Or are you just excited because I do it? You know what I mean? It's not just that excitement, but are you really passionate? So really, really good stuff. And I want to ask you this because this is an important topic too. It comes to daughters. Now, we talked a little bit about your son. You got 2 daughters right now. I know that the sports world itself, there's more and more women that are coming up into the sports. I mean, the auto, you know, industry, as far as sports goes, for the auto industry, whether it's drag strip, NASCAR, Indy, all those kinds of, you know, Danica Patrick's. I mean, even John Force's daughter is, you know, dragging, right? So, I mean, it's things like that go on. What about your daughters? Is Bryce Kenny comfortable? And is there any girls that do monster truck right now? I don't know.
Yeah, there's quite a few actually.
Oh, okay.
There's a couple. Cool. Yeah, there'll be a couple competing this weekend in Anaheim that you'll get to watch. And that's one of the coolest things is we're one of the only motorsports where, you know, the girls have the exact same equipment as the guys out there and the machines that they're piloting, and they do a great job. So yeah, I would be 100% supportive. In fact, you talked about John Force, who endorsed my book, by the way. John Force endorsed.
Yes, I did see that. Yeah.
Really, and
really
that's
good,
huge. Dude. His daughter, Brittany Force, is my daughter's. Oh my gosh. She is Eliza's hero. And so Eliza got to meet Brittany a couple weeks ago when she was in Charlotte. We went down there and met with them, and I got John to sign a couple copies of my book as well. But, cool. And Eliza wants to be Brittany Force. So yeah, I'm passionate about them just believing they can do hard things. And I want my daughter, you know, there's this focus right now of like girls can do things that boys can do as well. And I've always, you know, kind of scratched my head about that. I'm like, there's things that girls can do that boys can't do. And there's things that boys can do that girls can't do. Like, it's not about inequality. It's about, I don't want her getting focused on being like other people like that. I'm kind of on the switch of this. I don't want my daughter to think you can do the things that boys can do. Like, you can do the things that Eliza Kenny was meant to do. Like, you have so much uniqueness. Why would I ever want her to try to be equal with anybody, even girls? Like, she can do things better than Brittany Force, regardless of gender. Like, she was made and I believe created with such distinct, unique skills and combinations and personality traits that she was meant to do something no one else on planet Earth was meant to do. So as her dad, that's what I want her to focus on. And whether it's doing similar things like driving a top fuel car or driving a monster jam truck, yeah, I don't ever want her to think, oh, well, I can't. Yes, I want to passionately do this, or yes, I want to use this skill set, but I can't use those in this industry because I'm a girl. Yeah, that's where it falls away. Well, that's where it's like, whoa. No. You can absolutely go and kick the boys' butts or kick the other girls' butts in that industry. Don't ever let that be an obstacle. But I want to spend all my time helping her and her identity understand how unique she really is, because that's what finding your gears are all about. That's what Geared for Life, my book, is all about. It's your gears are your foundational beliefs, and our foundational beliefs are what shape our actions, and our actions are what get us the results and help us go through and actually attack our dreams and goals and visions that we have in life. So work backwards. If you're not doing the things in life and getting the results that you want, go back and look at the actions and why those actions aren't propelling you for that. And then when you're looking at those actions, go, why am I choosing that action? It's because somewhere in your belief set, you've got the beliefs wrong, meaning, to really dumb it down. And by the way, it can be really deep beliefs. It can be foundational, theological beliefs. Is there a God, or is my life have purpose or meaning? Yes. Those are really important questions, but those like freak us out, especially as men, because we're like, man, that's too deep. Think about like, should you be on time for work? Like, does punctuality actually matter? Let's just start there. If you think punctuality, if you believe in your gut, because there are people that just don't think it actually does matter. If you think it does matter, then your actions are going to reflect that belief. You're probably going to get to work on time or a little bit early. If you don't believe it really matters, then you're the one that shows up at 8:03 for your 8 a.m. shift. And you got the guys that think that punctuality does matter and believe that just hate you because you show up at 8:03 every day. But that's why your actions align with that. And so if you don't like the actions, then go back and change the belief set. And it could be something so simple, but that's where I've seen light bulbs go off with people. And where they go, okay, I believe more than I thought I did. Yes, we want you to go deep and all the deep, meaningful life questions, but don't start there. And that's what my book, Geared for Life, is all about. I share my 7 personal gears, things like being purpose-driven, how I found my purpose, and I take all of the what feels like just it's hard to find our purpose, to uncover our purpose. I think it's actually pretty easy. And I help people do that in that. And because of the way I went down and found that, becoming built for others, that's a gear. I've got to go into my built for others gear, getting my eyes off myself and onto other people. I got to find that gear at very specific times in my life. My fail faster gear, my choosing to believe rather than doubt gear. Sometimes I got to grab the gear shifter and pull the gear shifter down into that gear where I've got to make myself believe that good things are coming instead of doubting that everything's about to blow up in my life, kind of a deal. And so when you understand what your gears are, you can find them at the right time. So the reader is going to get to the end of my book. Bryan, they're probably going to steal a few of mine, but they're going to uncover and realize some of their own. And that's how you stay unstuck. If you're asking that question, is this really all there is to life? If you're asking that question as a dad, like, man, I thought I'd be a better dad, or I thought having kids would be more fun. Like, if you're asking those questions, you are prime. You are prime for reading my book, because it's going to uncover those gears. You're going to start finding those gears again, and you're going to start going, you know what? I'm not going to live my life in neutral anymore. I'm going to find first. And if I'm in first gear, this book, Geared for Life, is going to help you find second and third and fourth and fifth, to the point where you can run at life as fast as you want to be, whether it's being the best dad, or whether it's setting a Guinness World Record going 100 miles an hour in a Monster Jam truck. It's all about having the right gears. And so that's what Geared for Life is going to do. And I want that for Eliza. I said all that not to, sling books and even promote Geared for Life. But by the time she decides to do that, if she wants to go down the motorsports career, you better believe I'm going to help her do just that. I'm going to help her find identity-based belief sets that are going to be her gears, so that the rest of her life, she's going to be able to pull those gears at the right time, and she'll never be stuck. She'll never stay stuck. When that happens, in the moment of burnout, she'll be able to just shift into a different gear, and she can go make the impact she always dreams of making.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. So good. Absolutely makes 100% sense, complete sense. The book, Geared for Life, just phenomenal stuff within the book that will not only help you uncover maybe some things that you didn't realize about yourself, that you need to change or get better at. Right. And I think that, Geared for Life is perfect for that kind of situation. I think that, when we're talking about setting goals, setting goals is great. Having a dream and then setting the goals to get to that dream is great. But if you don't have the actions behind those goals, they're just going to be stuff that you write down on paper. That's all it's going to be. You have to have the actions behind it, and you have to be able to shift the gears to get there. So that's good stuff. Really, really good. Now, he has been talking a lot about, obviously, the upcoming monster truck jam that he has coming up, which is this weekend. By the time this show airs, that'll have been passed. So I want you to realize that. But you're traveling right now, obviously in the midst of all this going on. What's the upcoming future events and stuff that you have coming up for the monster truck?
So our main season is January to May. And so I'll start back up. I want to say it's January 13th weekend is my first outing. And then I'll be pretty much every weekend until our World Finals event, actually in LA, by the way. So we're going to be at SoFi Stadium in May, and that's our World Finals. That's our biggest event of the year. So we'll have to get you out to that, by the way.
I'm going to
Bryan.
that. I'm already going. I will make sure I'm already going.
You're getting the best events, by the way. So World Finals is the biggest event. Superstar Challenge in Anaheim, that's probably our second biggest event. So it's a lot of fun, but it's pretty much every weekend from there. So, and Monster Jam is a huge organization with 55 trucks on 6 different tours. And so I'm on one of 6 of those tours. And so I'm primarily on the East Coast with a couple West Coast events, but they can find my schedule on my Instagram at Warrior Bryce. Follow Monster Jam on their social channels as well to get all the action. But yeah, it's kind of broken up where you got arena tours where they go to kind of the smaller coliseums all over. And then you got the bigger football stadium tours that I'm on, or baseball stadium tours that, that's where we get to jump the truck 45 feet in the air and, do crazy backflips. Of course, now they're doing backflips in arenas and coliseums nowadays, but that's where all the big carnage happens. But I would encourage anybody, we're going to do, I want to say, I think it's 400 events, close to 400 events in 20 countries in the year 2024. Wow. So there's a good chance we're going to be coming to a city near you. Go to monsterjam.com for tickets and come see us. But it's a crazy career to have. It's a lot of fun for me, and I can't wait to get started in January.
Awesome. Okay. So now the important question, where can people get this book?
Yeah, anywhere books are sold. So everyone, I know we all buy everything off of Amazon. So that's probably the easiest one to get on is go to Amazon. But Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, they're in a lot of bookstores as well. So you might be able to walk up and to your local bookstore and actually pick up a copy today. And if they don't, they'll quickly order it for you. And Audible. So I know a lot of us are getting into audiobooks, and I actually voiced over the book myself, which was a lot of fun. Also a huge challenge, but had a lot of fun doing that. And so if you're an audiobook person, go on Audible and pick up a copy as well. I would love it. And I would also love to hear what you think. I'd love to hear what gears that you uncover and what you're going to find after the book, after you close that last chapter. And also, for the record, my favorite chapters are the last 3. So if you're like some people and, make it through halfway through every book you've ever read, finish mine, because if you get to the end of the chapter, all the way to the end of the book, I know you'll be different. And if you're not, you let me know. You send me a personal message. I'll refund you every dime. I'm that confident in it because these are the gears I find every day. But yeah, have some fun reading through it, listening through it. I'd be honored.
All right. Well, cool. I'll make sure that all that stuff's in the show notes. I'm going to bring my book this weekend because I'm going to have you sign it. I have to have you sign it.
Yes.
I have to have you sign that.
That's perfect.
Man, it has been so cool having you on. I really appreciate you sharing not only the stories that you shared. I feel like we could talk for a whole nother hour about, your career and your kids and your wife and just awesome stuff. You're a good dude. And thank you for being the entertainer for a lot of us in this world of monster truck, industry. It's so cool. And then also being the dad that you are, you acknowledge the fact that, yes, I do this for a living and I do travel a lot, but my family is what's important to me. That's what matters to me. It's not the truck. It's not going to these events. My family comes first. And that's really the message that you conveyed through this whole interview. And I commend you for that. So thank you for being the dad that you are as well. You represent the dad up community very well. And I appreciate it. And I am looking forward to continuing our friendship, brother. Thank you very much for being on, man.
Absolutely. Hey, we'll have a part 2 down the road, I hope. And we can kind of revisit. That's what we need. We need to do another one after you have a chance to experience Monster Jam for the first time and get your reaction. I need to interview you about what you experienced. I know that would be a lot of fun. But no, thanks for having me on in the Dad Up community. And you guys are awesome. And the fact that you're trying to be better dads, you're trying to make that impact, man, those efforts as a father never come back void. So don't get weary in well-doing. Go out there, make some memories with the family, and you won't regret it. So thanks for having me on, Bryan. I really do appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Listen, guys, this has been another episode of Dad Up. Thank you again to my good friend, Bryce Kenny, for being on. If you have not checked out Monster Truck, or maybe you have and you're a huge fan, please go to social media. Please go to the websites, check it out. Everything's in the show notes. You can click there. And if you have not gotten his book yet or are interested in getting his book, please make sure you do that as well. You can find that in the show notes as well. But again, a huge shout out to my good friend Bryce Kenny for being on. I thank him again. And as always, if you have not yet subscribed to my show, please make sure you do that so you don't miss any of the awesome guests that I have on each and every week, like Bryce. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at Dad Up Podcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad Up.